Excellencies, dear friends, good morning and welcome back to the second day of this Arctic Frontiers Abroad event. There's an old proverb that says, if you want to go fast, go alone. If you want to go far, go together. This event would have been nothing without partners. We are extremely grateful to the city of Oulu, to the Embassy of Sweden in Finland, Prime Minister's office in Helsinki, and of course the Norwegian Embassy in Helsinki for making this happen. Our next speaker represents one of our partners. He has an extensive and impressive career, including 7 postings abroad, being Norway's ambassador to UN in Geneva, to Washington, D.C., London, and now to Helsinki. He has also served as the Deputy Foreign Minister, the Political Director of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs, and as the highest senior official at the Ministry of Foreign Affairs as the Secretary General. Please welcome Ambassador Vegard Strømmen.
Thank you very much, Arno, and thank you very much for coming to this seminar. I must say that it's brilliantly organized. It's just a pleasure to be part of the support team for this event. And to you, Arno, for the way you handle the different panels and leads us through the deliberations. It's never easy to be master of ceremonies, and you do it superbly. What I thought would be useful, if I take a few minutes, I'll be brief, to sum up in a way where I think we are after day 1 as we go into day 2. And if I try to do the overall and the big picture, my feeling, at least my sense of it, is that the Nordic countries, and in this case, in particular then Norway, Sweden and Finland, has been brought together both by negative and by positive factor. And let me do the negative one first, which many has spoken about and alluded to. What's happening in our common neighbor in Russia, and not only related to the war in Ukraine. The war in Ukraine is, of course, the major thing, the major negative indicator, but there are also other things. Hybrid warfare, the annexation of Crimea, what we saw in Georgia in 2008. So it's actually not only limited to, there's some kind of a Russia crisis out there, of which the most important implication has got to do, of course, with the terrible war going on in Ukraine. And there again, very bad news this morning, as you might have seen. So this kind of negative impulse from around us, of course, plays a major part. But then there's another one, a positive one, and since I'm an old guy, it's a pleasure to speak about it, which is that relations in Northern Europe has probably never been as good as they are at the moment. And that is not something that has come around because only of what we see in Russia. It's been in the making for 20, 30 years. And to a large extent, the Swedes should be credited with that, because in a way they reached out. They are, after all, the Swedes are the largest country in Northern Europe. So we came in a way to a point where I think the reaching out was very well received by Sweden, and if I limit myself to Norway, Sweden, and Finland, it came to a natural point where we've all figured out that if we hang together, we will have a much larger impact. That is not to say that relations were bad before; they were just more remote. And they were clearly marked with what happened after the Second World War, where we all chose, and I will not start to go into that, but we chose different ways on security policy. Norway went west, to put it that way, and was a founding member of NATO, and Finland and Sweden entered a long period of non-alignment. So these two factors taken together has really brought us much closer. And we are at a point where we need to utilize that capital input, both of negative and positive things. Now, many good suggestions has come up, many ideas, and then after all the counter arguments come up. How can we do? Everybody wants to collaborate, but how do we? Not only how do we do it, but what are the individual things we can do? And then you end up with sort of the different obstacles all the time. That is a normal political process. So in a way, the northern regions that in a way used to have, what should I say, used to have peculiar problems. It's got to do with distances, geographic location and things like that, has become normalized. So in a way, it's a good thing to sit and listen to, oh, this is difficult, this is difficult. I'm from the deep south of Norway, and it's exactly more or less the same. We have the demographic problems. Those exist all over the place. They have been a long time in the coming. The same goes for climate change. It's also been quite a long time coming. The issue there is not that we don't understand it, it's who's going to pay for it and how we're going to do it. And in a way, also for the demographics, that's like a supertanker. It can't be turned around immediately. And we, focusing on the Arctic here, are exactly in the same position. So important things show how important they are when you have counter arguments and when you start to weigh them into a decision-making process. Here comes the old lawyer. So you know how important things are when you weigh it up against something else that is also important. And in that process we are at the moment. And this goes, of course, for the things that the northern areas, the northern part of Europe, the Arctic, has its huge advantages. There are some major advantages in this region. And they have to be utilized, but they have to be utilized in a way where you also weigh in other issues. Take land and water supply, the forest and natural resources, etc., etc. But, and this is a final thought. I like what the State Secretary said yesterday, and speaking only for Norway. It's a long way. It's 2,000 kilometers from my house in the south of Norway, more 2,400 maybe to Kirkenes in the north. But we are the same tribe. Believe me, it's not something that I come up with. They live in a very different sort of situation by the Russian border and on the other side of the Norwegian Lapland of Finnmark. But there is really something. There is an identity. There is a Norwegian identity, and it also goes for the people on the Russian border and where I have my house, 2,000 something kilometers to the south. If you tip Norway around, we end up south of Naples. Some people would like that to happen. It's not going to happen, and I wouldn't like it to happen. So there is something. There is something. So there is a community. There's not only a community feeling, but there is, in a way, a common task. We have a national policy, and what we want to achieve for sustainable development, for people to live and to flourish and to prosper in these regions, we have to do together. It's obvious. It's not going to be easy to find out how we do it, but you are making a great contribution here today, and good luck with the energy, with the business part of it, of starting to make that happen. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Ambassador Strømmen. Now, anyone who's ever worked with statistics across the Pan-Arctic region knows that the struggle is real. Not only is the statistics usually not available, if you manage to find it, it's not comparable. But we have a solution. Business Index North is a project that's been ongoing since 2017. And their job is to increase awareness of the opportunities and challenges for sustainable development in the Arctic. Between 2017, when the project was started, and 2022, they have published 8 reports. I strongly recommend you to have a look because all of them contain excellent material. And since 2023, the geographic scope of this project has been broadened to cover the whole of the Arctic. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce you researcher Andrei Minev from the North University Business School and Dr. Alexander Middleton, assistant professor at the Oulu Business School. The floor is yours.
Thank you very much, Anu, for this wonderful introduction. Thank you very much for inviting us to this conference. So now let's look into investment and business opportunities in this northern part of the Arctic. When you ask an academic difficult questions, such as topic of this keynote, please don't expect ready solutions. Instead, we would like to discuss some underlying factors and trends which we need to understand better to be able to discuss investment and business strategies. We would like to clarify that this part of the northern part of Finland, Sweden, Norway, we refer to North Kalotte, these regions in the presentations. First, we will talk about what happens, state of the art, and then we go for future perspectives. This is historical view on investments. The latest available data are unfortunately only for year 2021. Investments, mainland investments in the North Kalotte. We can see that the level of investments is comparable for all three countries. It's 7.1% annual growth for North Kalotte on average total. It's higher than our rate for Norway, Finland, Sweden as a whole. There are solid investments in electricity and public sector everywhere in the north, but there are some specific sectors for each region which we show on this slide. For example, north of Trebotnia is a region where we have strong manufacturing sector of electrical and electronic products. In Lapland, we have mining and basic metals manufacturing, as well as transportation. In Kainuu, it's mining. In Upper Northern, this is North Sweden, there is mining and manufacturing, including batteries production. In Tromsø and Finnmark, we have fishing and aquaculture, but also on land oil and gas infrastructures. And Nordland in Norway is famous for strong manufacturing sector, as well as fishing and aquaculture. From our previous scenario research, we know that there are 4 critical factors for the North Kalotte. These are people, renewable energy, connectivity, and knowledge. So these are critical things, and development in these areas will be decisive for future scenarios, how the future would be. At the same time, there are some more general trends like future of the European Union and role of NATO, which influence the region, of course. And there are also some global trends which influence everybody's future, like climate change, artificial intelligence, of course geopolitics, and also access to capitals. So this is the big picture if you want to understand future scenarios for investment and business development at the North Kalotte. And we need to be open-minded and consider very different scenarios. But today we would like to focus mostly on these 4 critical factors: people, knowledge, connectivity, renewable energy. We will also touch upon relations with the European Union. And of course, we need to remember that now we live in a turbulent world. So black swan type events come all the time, and it changes. So the world we used to live in is changing rapidly. So the big picture is not stable. We need to appreciate all these uncertainties when we talk about future business and investment opportunities. And now I invite Alexander to continue to discuss these 4 basic pillars. We will do it together, but Alexandra, please.
Yes, when we think about people in the north, it's the heart and core of any development and, of course, of business development as well. On this graph, you see 3 maps of Norway, Finland, and Sweden. These are the trends for the last 10 years. And what do we observe? What is the demographical situation in these regions? The big cities that have university centers are growing. These are Luleå, Umeå, Troms, then Bodø, Oulu, and Rovaniemi. The rest, all these bubbles that you see, the red spots, these are the declining municipalities. And it's a worrying sign because the population decline is much stronger pronounced in these northern regions than in the capital ones. Structurally, we also see that the population of working age people, youth, and children is declining. And the only cohort that is ever growing is the aging population of people of 60 plus years old. At the same time, we also observe north to south migration outflux in these regions. And these are the data for the last 4 years. And again, what we observe here is the increase only happens in big cities with universities where we have innovation and where the jobs are created. And what do we have to ask ourselves is, should we just accept this situation, the trend of growing urban-rural divide, that periphery is shrinking in population and only university centers are growing and busting? It's a difficult question for anyone, but before answering that, we need to make decisions about migration policies, about housing, and about job creations to make these regions attractive for newcomers, for new talent. And the second pillar is renewable energy. Renewable energy is the engine for sustainable economic development. On this graph, we show electricity energy mix, which shows from which sources we derive electricity. It could be fossil fuels, renewable energy, or nuclear power. And we are doing really well here in the north in terms of producing electricity from renewable sources. 96% in northern Sweden comes from renewable sources, 94% in Norway, and 85% in northern Finland. And if you see on this graph, Finland is also leading in producing electricity from wind generation. This figure shows to us electricity balance. And this basically demonstrates how much regions have in surplus or in deficit of energy, how much they consume and how much they can offer to other regions or to industries inside the region. So basically, Västerbotten, Norrbotten, and Norrland are leading in energy surplus. At the same time, we have some northern regions in Finland and Norway, like Troms, Kainu, Finnmark, and Lapland, that are net energy importers. And while this trend is quite promising for Swedish regions, there's still a question: how do we develop this critical resource in the future? Because there are bottlenecks in power grid and in transferability of the energy. And other obstacles are also land use and indigenous people's rights, that we observe a conflict of interest towards transition to more renewable energy installations in the north.
Yes, the next important pillar is knowledge economy. So now let's explore where we have knowledge stocks in the North Kalottar. This map shows innovative microclusters. We have a lot of them, and the list is not complete. At the forefront, we have our expertise in space, winter testing, data centers, and information communication technology, and circular economy. So together with strong universities, these microclusters should be considered as spots for business development and flagships for a transition to knowledge economy, which is very important to reduce dependence on natural resources and traditional production industries in the region. Connectivity. Yeah, Alexandra, I think.
Yes,
Yeah.
one of the very critical pillars in that framework that we consider is connectivity. But we understand it in a much broader context, not just transport, but also interrelations and accessibility, and also transport of people, ideas, knowledge, and services within this region. And the trends that we observe here is that connectivity is predominantly developed from north to south, and it's mostly centered on connectivity and transport of goods, materials, raw materials, and digital connectivity, but not so much the connectivity of people and human-to-people access to these territories. We have some examples of cooperation across the region. Is Kiruna-Narvik Railway, and there was also a project of Arctic Railway that was deemed financially unviable and received a lot of critical assessment and critical views from their local and indigenous communities. And also the connectivity in the north is part of a TNT network that has been in the making for a really, really long time. And perhaps there will be some first signs of improvement by 2030s. But the question that we have to ask ourselves is that, do we have time to wait for that and being integrated into this larger network that is still driven by north to south corridors? And this approach is largely technocratic without focusing on the human dimension.
Yes, and let me use this naive example to criticize north-to-north connectivity. You can see on this map the itinerary of a person like me who is going from Buda to Oulu to discuss cooperation. So I have to travel to the south, like Helsinki, Oslo, so it goes through the south. So it's difficult to meet. It's difficult to discuss and exchange knowledge. And it's not lack of airports, which is the bottleneck. We have airports everywhere, but we have no flights between us. Should we accept this as a status quo situation and, as given, or should we take this seriously? What do we need to get cross-regional flights? So we think this question is worth discussing. This one is our new map. This visualizes a recent trend, green projects. It's a big trend which will influence future of the North Kalottar. BEAN project identified so far 33 green projects, projects labeled green, and on the word cloud on the right you can see main areas, sectors of these projects. So hydrogen, wind energy, battery production, carbon neutral processing and critical minerals are at the forefront. But these projects need a lot of raw materials, critical minerals, a lot of renewable energy, a lot of investment. So who will invest, who will support the project? So there are many questions as well, and also consequences for local communities and ecosystems are not clear. So yeah, we will continue studying these projects and probably will come up with new analysis of this green projects trend for the North Kalota.
And finally, we want to discuss the role of the EU and cooperation between the EU and the North Kalot. But first of all, we need to address the EU's strategic autonomy. The EU's aspiration is to be independent and self-sufficient in policy making, but it involves many factors. First of all, it's the question of defense, and there is not a clear cut, and there is no common understanding even within the EU what the trajectory should be. Should it be more military independent, like some states propose, or should it move towards a larger cooperation with transatlantic alliance? And this all relates to hard security questions. Then we have soft security issues, which are critical technology and resources. This relates and refers to EU's wish to become more self-reliant on natural materials, many of which are found in the Arctic land. But there's also a question of being open to the market, or being more protectionist. So this will also influence the future policies and EU's strategic autonomy. And finally, we have a very difficult issue, which is European identity. Do we even have this thing as European identity anymore, which is based on and built on universal values, on human rights? When we see so much tensions, so many transformations in the EU countries, which are turmoiled by populist moves and also by anti-migrant sentiments.
Yes, and of course, a very critical factor which presents significant uncertainty is the relationship between the United States and the European Union. So we don't know how it would develop in the future, and we need to be open-minded and consider different scenarios. For example, if the geopolitical autonomy of the European Union is strengthening, then the United States may consider the European Union as a competitor, and an Inflation Reduction Act serves as a perfect example of protectionistic policy of the United States, which is difficult for the European industry. At the same time, we don't know how much the United States will be involved in the European security in the future. All these factors need to be taken into account, and what is interesting when it comes to the North Kalota, it's a governance balance or relationship with the European Union in the future. So would it be sort of top-down governance, or is European Union deciding on what and how to develop in the North Nordics? Or could it be some kind of bottom-up approach where local stakeholders in the North Kalota can influence development of the strategy? Yes, and basically one can consider scenarios like that if the economic and political power of the European Union is growing, one can expect high top-down pressure to extract natural resources in the North Kalota, because Europe needs resources. On the other hand side, we may come to a future where European Union or Europe will be sort of divided to cooperation blocks of countries and regions defined by common history, culture, geography as well. And we need to be prepared for that. In that situation, we may experience that North Kalotto would be part of the Nordic bloc with multiple challenges and needs to develop sort of multipolar approach to different geopolitical actors. Yes, we have just 20 minutes. I think we go straight to this slide. Keep on time.
Yeah, so when we were tasked to think about business development and investment, what we could come up with is actually these questions that we need to address first the strategy. What kind of strategy do we have for people, renewable energy, knowledge, and connectivity in these regions? Do we work alone or together? And is it devised as a bottom-up or top-down strategies? So these are the big and broad questions we pose to you, and we will be happy to engage and answer any of your comments, ideas, and thoughts. Thank you.
Thank you very much. 21 minutes.
Very good. Thank you so much, Alexandra and Andrei. There is a lot of competence here right now, and we have a few minutes remaining in the program. So 1 or 2 questions we can take. Let's take the gentleman here in the back, and then I think we had Ambassador Vuorimäki as well. We'll group these questions together.
My name is Petri Karinen, Head of International Affairs at Business Oulu. You mentioned US and EU relationships in this context, but you didn't mention anything about China. What's your comment on China when it comes to this Arctic and the North Kalotto?
Thank you. Can we take the other question as well, and we'll respond to them both, please?
I can take it.
Thank you very much for the very interesting questions. Me being someone who spent close to 2 decades in the EU structures, I was fascinated by your remarks on the European Union. You raised a lot of issues and aspects, but I think you fell short in attempting to provide an answer. Hence, I'm pushing you. In your opinion, what should be the role of the European Union in the region? Thank you.
Thank you. So China and the role of the European Union, please.
What we try to say here is that the people and policymakers in the North Kalotto should be at the table, and they should be working together in devising joint strategy. That there is no imbalance when all decisions are made in top-down direction.
Yes, that's true. So big things are happening in the world. So it's very important to stimulate bottom-up strategic initiatives in the North Kalotto until it's too late and we end up in this future where we just have to be subordinate to some big trends. So it's important to wake up somehow. But when it comes to the role of China, of course, we've been thinking about that. It's always on the background. The United States is competing geopolitically with China. So, and of course, we know that the economic center of gravity of the world is moving to the Southeast Asia, to that region. And to compete for that market, the United States needs also strong military presence and strong alliances in that region. So role of the United States in European security is very much unclear. It needs to prioritize its geopolitical competition with China. So it's a big uncertainty, as we see.
Thank you. So a call for action for us Northerners as well to get more involved.
Yes,
As I
wake
hear.
up,
Wake
involve local communities, people, think together. Yeah.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Now, Alexandra and Andrei are going to be here for the rest of the day, so please feel free to catch them during the breaks. We are in the land of the coffee drinking champions, so we'll take a short break now for about 15 minutes. The program will continue at 9:50 with a session on green energy options and solutions, moderated by Mats Fredriksen from the AEC. Please use this time to get a refill on coffee, and we'll meet back here at 9:50. Thank you. Tusen takk.
Hello to the teams. My name is Kaspar Parkkinen. I'm the audio technician here in Oulu Theatre. I'm just testing if you can hear me. I cannot, unfortunately, hear you at the moment.
The hardest part now is now to interrupt the coffee break, but we will get started. So please, everyone, please take a seat. I know that is the coffee break is the most important, and the networking is the most important, especially in Finland, the largest coffee drinkers in all of Europe, if not all of the world. Today, we will go a little bit more in depth, or right now in this session, we'll go a little bit more in depth on some of the conversations that's been in the previous panels. So my name is Mads Fredriksson, and I'm the Executive Director of the Arctic Economic Council. And Arctic Frontiers and their amazing team has put together quite a panel of very, very competent people from the whole region. And as you can see, we also have a person joining us. I will introduce him in a second online as well. So we will be all the way from Bodø, we will be in Sweden, and we will be in Finland. So to get started, I would like to invite our speakers here in the room on stage. So if Marco, Max, and Petri, please come on stage, and then you will get to introduce yourself here. We will be talking about renewable energy. And not only renewable energy, because as we saw in the previous presentation, renewable energy is hydro, is wind, it's geothermal in some places. But the future of renewable energy and the future of using this, and really where the magic happens, is in hydrogen. And hydrogen is one of these words like AI and quantum mechanics and computing that is being thrown around. And I'm not sure everyone really understands exactly what hydrogen is or what the opportunities are. But this panel of extremely smart people will tell us exactly what hydrogen is. They will tell us what is currently happening in the region. Then we will go into a SWOT, a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats. And then they will answer the question at the end of who should do what, when, for how much. So we will try to get very specific, very concrete about some real company cases of what is happening. So let's get started. And I would like for each one of the panelists to introduce themselves. And the way we do it, because someone is joining us online, everyone on stage will introduce themselves, and then we will go to Bodø, where Peter will introduce himself. But Petri, please introduce yourself and what company you represent.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for having this opportunity to come here. My name is Petri Luoma, and I represent a company called Norwegian Hydrogen. Yes, it's from Norway, but we operate in all Nordics, and my personal field is in Finland. My task is to develop projects in Finland, to find hydrogen production possibilities and make them that we could investment and build them. But also we have a subsidiary called Vireon, which are planning to build a hydrogen refilling station network in Nordics. So that's my second task, also to build these refilling stations.
Perfect. Max, please introduce yourself.
Thanks, Mats. Hi, everyone. I'm Max Morgan from Nordian Energy. Nordian Energy is the gas transmission systems operator for Sweden, and I work in the separate subsidiary charged with developing hydrogen infrastructure. And hydrogen infrastructure, specifically underground pipelines, are necessary because the hydrogen molecule is a lot like conference delegates, always trying to escape, unlike this audience here, of course. So we need an economic and efficient way to transport hydrogen, and that's what I represent.
And Marco, Port of Oulu, please.
Thank you for having me. So my name is Marko Mykkänen. I'm the managing director in the Port of Oulu. And what comes to hydrogen, I've been talking to, for example, our companies, shipping lines that are calling our port for years now, that what has been happening in that business. And the other issue is that we just expanded our port a couple of years ago by 55 hectares, and we are now offering that land for these kind of projects. So that's my case.
And we will hear more about this in a second. And then Peter, I hope you can hear us in Bodø. If you introduce yourself, please.
I can hear you. Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes, loud and clear.
Very good, very good. I'm Petter Olsen Bertheussen. I'm the regional manager for Green Age here in northern Norway. We develop and build and operate hydrogen plants. So we have about 5 projects here in Norway in the pipeline, and I'm currently in Bodø, where we have the most mature project that is set to produce in 2026, about 10 tons a day.
Wow, that's amazing. So all of these people are working in cutting-edge technologies. They're working already in the future. And I think a lot of you have heard the word hydrogen, and you heard methanol, ammonia maybe, but do we really know what it is? Because I'm not an expert in hydrogen, and not like these people. So we will just start out with a brief crash course, take you back to school for a second, and just tell you what is hydrogen, how is it produced, what is the usages, and so on. So maybe if you want to start with us, and then just what is hydrogen?
Yes, no, if we go just the basics, please feel me if I forget something, because I have living in the hydrogen bubble already so many years. But yeah, hydrogen is the most common gas in our universe, and its symbol is H. Of course, commonly used as H2 because it only has one electron, and the hydrogen want to have the electronical stable situation, so it goes together with another one in a natural state. Nowadays, the hydrogen has a lot of trending because hydrogen is spoken as the key player for sustainable change and renewable industry and reducing the emissions. But yeah, hydrogen is mostly founded as gas state. It's the most lightest gas in the universe also, and also the smallest. Like you mentioned, it always try to get away from all the small hoses. These are like a little bit challenges in a hydrogen field and industry, but I think they are also like the positive things as we are having leakage. It's so dense, so it's light, so it goes up fast and everything. What else I have? I need to.
If I want to produce hydrogen, what do I do?
Yes, it's used mostly. Hydrogen is used like nowadays and mostly in fuel cells to produce power and energy, but also it has been used in industry like centuries already. So it's not like a new thing, but now it's becoming more popular because we need to reduce the emissions. And then of course, like well known, it's used in space, in rocket ships, because of this high amount of energy. So it's a really good fuel in those. And
if I can jump in there.
Yes, please.
There's two, I understand hydrogen is so hyped. If it was a band, you'd be so over it by now. I know, so let's not dwell on that, the hype of it. Why it is hyped though, it offers the potential for a clean energy future. Why? Because there's two main ways that we envisage using hydrogen. One is we burn it like we normally do when we want heat or power. Two is we generate electricity from it, and there we use a fuel cell. Now, in both scenarios, unlike every other material that we currently use, either burning it for heat and power or generating electricity, the only waste product when you use hydrogen is clean water. So it sounds too good to be true, right? And unfortunately it is. Because even though hydrogen is the most abundant element in the entire universe, around 80 to 90% of all matter in the entire universe, because God has a sense of humor, here on Earth, hydrogen is only found bound together with other molecules, such as natural gas, such as with water. So if we want to use this miracle molecule, we have to first find a clever and emissions-free way to separate it. And that is the tricky part. Then, when we separate it, we have to find a way to move and use that efficiently. If I may give you one more thought experiment. So hydrogen is this wonderful molecule. If I had a kilogram of hydrogen and a kilogram of petrol or diesel, that kilogram of hydrogen will give you 3 times more energy than the kilogram of petrol. So great, let's all use hydrogen because it's clean. Here's the trick though. Under normal conditions like we have here at the normal pressure, normal temperature, that 1 kilogram of hydrogen, of diesel or petrol, will fit in a bottle, about a 1.1 liter bottle. What will the hydrogen require? It will require 11 cubic meters, which is about a cement truck. So moving it under normal conditions, you're not going to move a lot of hydrogen. If you took the largest bulk carrier in the world, which is around 220,000 cubic meters, that under normal pressure, etc., would carry just 20 tons of hydrogen. So obviously we have a problem. How do we move this miracle molecule?
And this is exactly what Marco said, that he's expanding his port because this is going to take up some space in the future.
Not that much space.
But I just want to mention there's also, when we talk hydrogen, and especially in the shipping or transportation, we also talk about ammonia, and we talk about methanol, and we always use the catch-all phrase of hydrogen. I don't know, Peter, if you have anything to add also about, you know, the different kinds of fuels, like what do we do with the hydrogen? Do you have anything to add online to what you heard from the previous?
So I agree with the rest of the panel and what they're saying, and that's why our strategy is to produce the hydrogen where it's needed. So cutting the transportation need on it. Another example is a semi truck. If you will to transport hydrogen on a semi truck, you will get about 1 ton of hydrogen on this semi truck. So it needs immense of space, and it's quite a logistical nightmare transporting gas hydrogen. When it comes to other derivatives like ammonia and ethanol and also e-fuels, sustainable aviation fuel, this is also hydrogen is needed in order to produce these. So in order to meet the EU's mandate when it comes to what is considered green fuels, we need green hydrogen. So we basically need it in order to do this transition. I guess our strategy being just next to an airport will open up a door for anybody wanting to either liquefy the hydrogen or make it into e-fuels, spiking biogas or etc.
No, thank you. And we will stay in the logistics and transportation sector now because Marco is, we heard about, okay, we need to separate something. We are already quite far with the technology at this. We need some energy for that, renewable energy. We heard we had that. We need water. We got that. Then we need to move it or transport it, and we need to store it. And it's going to cost a lot of challenges, as we just heard from Peter. It's nice and easy to use locally. But like shipping is international and is transported over distances, so people need to refuel in various places. I would like you to talk a little bit about the port of Oulu, what you're doing, and what would your role be in all of this technology in the future? Like, what would your role as a port be in the hydrogen sector in the future?
I would say that we are kind of enabler for this business because we, like I said, we expanded the port area by 55 hectares. That was done by dredging our sea channel from 10 meters to 12.5, and we placed all that soil that was coming from the bottom of the sea next to our port. And we have let's say, a lot of new field within the port fence. Now, some of that area we will be using for the port activities, but the rest we already started the zoning process. So the zoning will be changed from port zone to chemical industry zone. And we have had a lot of discussions during the last 12 or 18 or 24 months. And one reason is that we have a big source of CO2 next to us. One very large forest industry factory, and that's the main reasons. Of course, when you're looking for the place for such industry, you need to have the good logistics. The maritime shipping lines are there. You have the CO2. We will have the power lines there. So that's the reason why we are quite happy to have these discussions. And what comes to the shipping line issues, I'm totally agree with Max that the size of the hydrogen is the problem, because when talking about the shipping lines, they are now either talking about methanol or ammonia. They are not talking about hydrogen because in these short distances you cannot use hydrogen as a fuel because it takes half of your cargo space. So
could I jump in there? I just want to hear just briefly about this, about the demand. Do you have customers right now saying, okay, I want to come to the port of Oulu, but I need ammonia, I need methanol? Does that demand even exist today?
No. To be honest, no, not at this point. But there is a big but, and this is an excellent question. But if you're looking at, for example, Fit for 55 regulations coming from EU. It says that approximately in next 5 years, you have to reduce the emissions by a couple of %. But in the next 15 years, you have to reduce them by 25-26%. And in the next 25 years, you have to reduce them by 75%. So the demand for these fuels is skyrocketing after 5 years' time. And if you want to be ready, then you have to move now.
A couple of points I got to jump in there. It seems as though we're suggesting that the hydrogen demand will come. And yes, for the future uses, that has yet to emerge. But I want to point out that we do use hydrogen today, around 100 million tons. And that is a problem, because today we create 100 million tons almost exclusively from natural gas through a process called steam methane reforming. Basically, you use a lot of high temperature and a lot of pressure to crack natural gas into component parts. This produces enormous amounts of emissions. 100 million tons of hydrogen produces over 900 million tons of emissions every year. Put that in context, that's equivalent to all the emissions of Indonesia and Great Britain combined. So we have an existing hydrogen use that needs to be cleaned up before we start having dreams of multiplying that by 10 or 20 times. So I would just point out that. And the trick is, because we want to produce this hydrogen cleanly, another quirk of fate or the gods playing a trick with us, the best places to produce hydrogen with renewable energy are almost never equivalent to where the hydrogen will be used. That is in the steel plants, chemical plants, etc., where it can make a huge difference. So we have to find a way to bridge this gap.
And we will just, Peter has a point, and then we will hear about Norwegian hydrogen and what exactly you are doing to get very concrete again, because as Mark says, it is happening at the moment. So that's a very good point. Peter, please.
Yeah, I really do. We need to clean up the existing hydrogen business line as it is today, but I think we are on parallel paths. So at the same time as figuring out how to fix the problem that we have with the emissions on hydrogen usage today or production today, we also have to work on how to get today's transportation needs and so forth on hydrogen, and also we need to figure out how to transport it in a smart way, because the time is so limited. We don't have the time to fix one problem and then the other and then the other. 2030 is tomorrow. 2050 isn't that long away. So I think we're talking about parallel developments here, and not the one or the other.
No, thank you. And the future is already here. So Norwegian hydrogen, please elaborate a little bit about what you do specifically in the north of.
But before that, if I may answer your question earlier, are there already customers?
Please.
I can say that, please Norwegian correct me if I'm mixing up the administrations, but I think it was in summertime, Enova was pronouncing 10 grants for the hydrogen vessels in Norway. So in that way, we are having discussion with them. So basically, there are also marine customers coming. It's not in the far future, but it's coming. Just saying. So yes, Norwegian hydrogen has part in this hydrogen and reducing emission field as a green hydrogen producer, and we want to produce the hydrogen using the electrolyzer, and we are just aiming for the hydrogen part. And we understand the role of hydrogen in this case, that it always kind of need ecosystem. We need the green electricity and we need the hydrogen user. And we also want to facilitate or cooperate really close with all the partners, the electricity producer and the end user, to facilitate the best possible solution to reduce the emissions, and they could use the hydrogen as well as possible. We at the moment already have 2 locations where we are producing hydrogen, one in Norway, in Hellesult, and one in Denmark. It's called Grønbrint. I don't want to pronounce the town, but yeah, so we are already producing green hydrogen those, and both are basically at the moment producing green hydrogen for industry. In Hellesult, we also will start to use our refilling station there. But good examples that the industry is waking up there. The Denmark location is producing green hydrogen for biogas plant, which is using to produce it directly to the synthetic biogas, so e-fuels. And in Norway, we have a customer who is using it to produce asphalt. So in my way, that the industry is coming there little by little, and it's getting up and waking up. Yes, and we also have this, of course, this subsidiary, call it Vireon, which is our distributor company basically, and they are planning to build, and we are planning to build this refilling station where we will distribute hydrogen for transportation, in road transportation mostly. And those stations, the first one will open and start to work and operate in Hellesylt, I think, end of this year. And in Finland, we will open first station in Finland next July in Jyväskylä. And these are basically where we mainly work, but of course we focus more in Norway than in Finland, focus heavily on the marine side too, and we try to extend this emission reduction on that field also. But yes, our main product is green hydrogen produced by electrolyzers and heavily on whole Nordic areas.
So you need renewable energy, you need water to do this.
And I would like to mention, especially in this case, that we are having one location which I'm working in Tornio, which is the Arctic area, and it's next to Swedish border. So basically, it goes for the team as a cross-border cooperations. And yes, we are trying to push it forward. We are having good negotiation in the industry, and of course, it takes time. But every kind of cooperation, if we could have between the cross-border, it would work really well in this case.
And let's move cross-border to Sweden and what Nordion is doing, building the future energy infrastructures. Max, maybe you could elaborate a little bit about what is going on in North Sweden at the moment, what is Nordion doing, and what do you work with when it comes to hydrogen?
Okay, well, we're building hydrogen infrastructure, which is underground pipelines, which is, in our opinion, and also the International Energy Association and thousands of other scientists, the most efficient way to move hydrogen over long distances. So again, why should we do this, move hydrogen over long distances? Well, as I say, we need to clean up existing uses of hydrogen, and we want to promote uses that decarbonize industry in new sectors. But that challenge that we need to produce hydrogen sustainably and cleanly, and that's never where the customers are. So how do we move it? Well, let's go to the first point about why the Arctic and northern Sweden is unique. You touched on water. See, how we're going to produce this green hydrogen is using this. Water, electrolysis. We all remember this vaguely from our science classes at school. If you pass an electric current through water, it will split into oxygen and hydrogen. So you need water. That's the key ingredient. And that's why I say the Arctic is important. You see, because some of the people who created the climate problem are now telling us they have a solution. That countries that are heavy in fossil fuel, they're going to pivot and they're going to sell us hydrogen in the future. I haven't set a date, but it's going to happen. These are generally very, how shall I describe them, dry desert areas. And they're going to continue to be the major energy supplier to Europe. I say there's a different future for us. And it starts here in the Arctic. You see, because we need lots of renewable electricity and we need lots of water, something that the Arctic has. Also, unfortunately, with a lot of mosquitoes, but we'll figure out a market for that later. See, because to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen, I keep talking about a kilogram, how much water do you need? You need 9 liters of water directly. But to run the whole plant, you probably need around 40 to 50 liters to produce 1 kilogram of hydrogen. Therefore, if we're going to produce millions of tons of hydrogen, you are going to need vast quantities of water. Now, the business models will say, oh, but we can run this in the Middle East, we can run massive solar and desalination in the most water-stressed regions of the world. You're going to create new environmental problems. That's something that we gloss over, aside from that minor issue of human rights. You see, because I see this as an opportunity led by the Arctic that is blessed with renewable electricity, with water, with good infrastructure. Our models show that we can provide all of Europe's energy needs, not some. We can be truly energy independent and chart a new course. We no longer, for our children's sake, have to make compromises and say we turn a blind eye to human rights abuses in exchange for some cheap energy here or there. This is truly a different energy future I envisage.
And where how far is northern Sweden with this? Like, are you?
Well, you know, we're just throwing out the odd revolution that changes the entire steel industry. First innovation in 1,000 years in steelmaking, using hydrogen. Happened there in Sweden.
Largest investments in the history of Sweden.
Also happening, coming. So there are huge transformations taking place, all away from the center of attention.
And talking about the center of attention, Peter, I want to move to Bodø and say, why of all places are you starting in Bodø making hydrogen? You talked about local use and so on. What is the local use there? What are your advantages? And maybe talk a little bit about Green Age and what you do.
Yeah, so Bodø, it's essentially it was a small fishing town in the 1816 when it got its town citizenship, and since then it's always been a regional business and trade city, and it's developed into this regional transport hub. So we have the northern end stop for the railway stops in Bodø. And it's one of 2 railroads that are still on fossil fuel in Norway, as well as we have one of 2 airports in the EU that are being built right now, is being built here in Bodø. Also, we have about 10,000 port calls and a lot of road transportation, of course. So we are a transport hub. So if we can turn these transport sectors into clean, new, sustainable transportation, then we have solved a lot of the problem we have in Bodø and the region, where the emissions are mainly from transportation. Mainly from the maritime industry, mainly from air traffic, and mainly from road traffic. So if we can get these shifted over to hydrogen, one of the solutions, then we've solved a lot of the emission problems here in this region. So Torghatten, which is a ferry that's going from Bodø to Lofoten, the government decided that this should run on hydrogen. So these will be the largest hydrogen vessels in the world, 2 of them, that will bunker on our facility, quayside, every day and go to Lofoten and back on about 6.5 tons of hydrogen every day. Also, you know, with the airport, we are looking at the infrastructure of how we can send this in pipelines to the airport that is just next by to our hydrogen facility. So for us, it makes sense to produce the hydrogen where we are now. And of course, there is a lot of things to figure out here, and it's a lot of business development, and it's a lot of trial and error. But this is going to be the future. This is either it's battery, it's hydrogen, and it's bio, and I don't see any other way than to use all 3 of them and to utilize all the tools that we know and have and technology.
No, thank you very much. So we already heard from all the speakers about the advantages, some of the challenges, the opportunities, and so on. So I just want to structure it around the SWOT analysis, and we'll start with you, Marco, and we'll move across the stage here about what are the strengths, like from the port of Oulu, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats within, you know, the hydrogen sector and the hydrogen technologies and so on.
How much time we have for this?
No, and I think we talked a lot about all the opportunities here. Yeah. So but let's try to touch upon in headlines, and then we'll deep dive into some of them. So.
Okay, when we are talking about the strengths, I would say that the most of the, for example, the wind energy parks are located here up north. That's one. Where forest industry is present here. We have millions of tons of biogenic CO2 available. We have good logistics connections like our port here, of course. But I would say that the opportunities, if we jump to the opportunities, they are huge. Forest industry in Finland is producing more than 20 million tons of CO2 annually. I know that there are some issues about the carbon capture, but if we could get, let's say, 50%, 75% of that, we would make more than 10 million tons of methanol, for example. And that will be, I don't know the price level at this point, but from 5 to 10 billion euro business. And when we are comparing that to the forest industry, I recall last year it was something 12 billion euro business in Finland. So there is opportunity to create another huge business for the Nordic countries and for Finland.
So you talked about the strengths and you talked about the opportunities as a true businessman. No weaknesses, no threats?
Well, as I see it, at this point, the weakness is the electricity grid. We need more connection points. That's the. After talking with the guys who are building the national grid, they are saying that they have a lot of projects ongoing, and it takes millions and millions of euros, which they do not have. So that's the problem. That needs to be fixed. And of course, if you are talking about the customers or the manufacturers, the other one is saying that we would do if they buy, and the other one is saying that we cannot buy because there is no production. So that's the chicken and egg problem over there. And subsidies, one more thing is if we need to get this running, for sure we need some subsidies from the government side, but there is also the threat that if some big countries far away give huge subsidies, what would it mean? Do we have these projects anymore here up north?
Yeah. There was a part of the conversation yesterday about competition. You know, competition is healthy. At the same time, we also heard from Boulder that the government can decide to make a decision to have a hydrogen ferry, and it will make a difference in the development. Marks, let's move to Sweden and the SWOT analysis of the hydrogen sector there.
Okay, well, unsurprisingly, I have controversial views. I've long believed that Sweden could be the Saudi Arabia of clean energy for Europe, perhaps with a little less sand, maybe a few more human rights. But we could do that, and we have all the prerequisites. As I mentioned before, the Nordics, we could supply all of Europe's energy. But we need to think tactically. For example, the electricity in this room right now is fresh, it's live. Wasn't produced last year, wasn't produced yesterday, it's live. So while we can produce renewable electricity, how can we think tactically to provide our needs through seasons, etc.? And that's where hydrogen comes in, because it can potentially be stored. It's a form of storage of renewable energy as well. So that provides stability in periods when we have more variability in wind production, etc. The weaknesses are, of course, let's start with political. Unfortunately, right now, and this is not just a Nordic problem, it's a global problem, we see the rise of what I term energy nationalists. Our electricity. How dare we send it to there or there, keep it all for ourselves. This is fantasy thinking. This is not how the world works. We don't produce electricity at the town level, at the village level, and say it's ours. No, we have an interconnected grid. If one part fails, we step in. It's cooperation that makes the global energy grid the most complex mechanism that humankind has ever built. It's built on interoperability and cooperation. This is not the time for us to drop. As you say, huge investments need to be made, yes, but we also need bolder policymakers and politicians that think beyond their borders.
Cross-border collaboration has been one of the themes throughout this whole things. So the weakness for northern Sweden is, yes, the electricity grid system we heard about, or lack of renewable energy, and then political will to support this. What for Norwegian hydrogen? And we'll do another round and deep dive into some of them. For Norwegian hydrogen, what are the SWOTs?
No, I would of course start with the strengths, and like Marko said, that the electric grid is not strong enough, but I think it is strong. at some points, and where it is strong, it's possible to get like a huge amount of electricity. And like in our location, Tornio, it's 1 gigawatt reserved for us, so we could build from day to future immediately when the market starts, like a really large-scale production plant. But then, like a little bit weakness, we need to probably export it in the beginning, because there are not so much industry ready to use it if we are not building the pipeline to Sweden to use it in the steel industry. But that's kind of also opportunity for the Arctic to attract some industry who could use this hydrogen and be the end user of it, and we would get the fuel benefit of the chain. The weaknesses, I think I need to add here a little bit about the technical challenges. I think those are still a little bit, even though we have been using the hydrogen a lot, and as we talked about, it takes a lot of space to storage and this kind of thing, high pressures, and the technology at the moment is kind of a little bit expensive in that field. So I think that we can develop the manufacturing instruments in hydrogen field and push the expenses a little bit down, even though we have really cheap electricity in Nord. But the technical challenges and expenses side is weakness. But also, just this is kind of like a little bit, I extended my thoughts that I think we probably don't have like a full experiment yet, that it might go -40 here, but same time in the summertime it might go +30. So I think it might also give some challenges in the technical side. That these things are the things what we need to lesson learn, like that way. And that's where I think we are, and we need to start to build some more smaller electrolyzer and small facilities first, so we will learn.
What about skills? Can you get the right people you need to develop this? Can you attract those innovative engineers?
I have no basically facts behind it, but I think this attracts people and people will learn. And hydrogen is not so far from industry nowadays. Like if you have welders or mechanicians or something who have worked in the pressure instruments and pressure field, I think it's not so different in the hydrogen thing. Of course, electrolyzers and automation bring a little bit more and these kind of things, but I think we have time to, of course, if we focus to study and teach them, but I think, and of course, we need human, so that's it.
If I can jump in there, though, I mean, this region started it. It was about, if I remember correctly, the 1920s that Norway discovered the potential of hydropower and electrolyzers. So this is where it all started, really, up here in the north. So in the sense, we don't need to invent the wheel in many regards. In other aspects we do, how we move such large quantities of hydrogen, how we store it, how it relates to the energy grid, these are new issues. But in terms of basically creating hydrogen, well, you know, we're already there.
Yeah. And let's just move to Bodø before we're going to get into, a little bit more. I also want to talk a bit about safety and security and storage and all of this from the port perspective. But in Peter, in Bodø, what are the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities and threats for hydrogen?
Yeah, so of course, I would say the totality of this shift over to renewable energy sources is out of sync. So one of the elephants in the room is the need for more power, the grid, the competence, the regulations, the incentives. Everything is kind of out of sync, and I think this is. Both Sweden and Finland can relate to this. So the politicians are lagging behind. They want to, but it takes time to get these incentives and so forth. But then the EU is doing the refuel and Fit for 55 and so forth. So I usually say to our potential customers, in order to get offset on the hydrogen we are going to produce, what does it cost you to not go over to clean energy carriers? If the diesel prices are doubling in the next years, how are you going to compete with those who are already shifting over So everything is kind of out of sync. Who makes the investments on the grid if there's not enough customers and so forth? So we really have to kind of try and get into sync. It's collaboration between different entities, not only between us as a producer and the customer, but collaboration between us, the government, the people who makes the regulations, the manufacturers of the maritime ships, airplanes, whatever. Everybody has to talk together, and we have to kind of get into sync. So the strength here in Bodø is that we are first movers. We're not waiting for new technology. We're doing it with the existing technology. As it was said here, we've made hydrogen in the region for over 100 years. So we know how to do it, and we just need to do it now, build this sandbox and play with it, build up the value chains and so forth. Yeah.
No, thank you very much. And Max, I know you have opinions about the spreadsheet
Oh boy, do I
calculations
ever.
as well.
You raise a very important point. And I go to a lot of hydrogen conferences, and at some stage I start to feel really uncomfortable and a little bit dirty. Because while everyone starts the day saying, oh yes, we get climate change, I understand climate change, I understand it. And then by after lunch, we're talking about, let's make money together. Now, this is my problem, that quite often, everybody says they get climate change, and yet we're asked to answer a moral question through a spreadsheet. You know, like, okay, yeah, I get it, we need to do something, but the cost. I want to be controversial here and say, let's sail back in time, 1850s in America, and we decide collectively as a society that slavery is abhorrent and morally unacceptable. But, you know, the cost, free labor, yeah, we'll free the slave as soon as these steam engines get cost competitive. We delay. See, that's the part I don't get. When we say, leaders often get up and say, I get climate change, but the cost. Do you get the moral challenge or not? Because let's be blunt, everyone in this room, climate change will be an inconvenience. You know, oh, it's a hotter or this or that. But really, the moral angle is that it's our children and their children that will suffer. Not going to affect us directly. We'll be long gone. So there's the moral challenge. Do we rise up to this now and say, yes, we make sustainable business, cost-effective business, but don't try and disguise this as some massive business opportunity we're all going to get rich?
And I think, I mean, one person who's going to feel the extra cost is Marco, because the easiest part for you, your industry has existed for hundreds of years. If you could just keep the same way, the same fuel, ideally one type of fuel, and go the same way it's always been, business as usual will be the cheapest for you. So this is going to come with extra cost. I mean, we talked about space, we talked about, I mean, the whole security around having ammonia stored in your port, capturing those CO2. What kind of investments are we talking about, and what's the business model for you with all of these things?
Well, we have been discussing this a lot with the shipping lines, especially that it will cost a lot. But on the other hand, the shipping lines are not against, for example, these Fit for 55 regulations. They are for them. Only thing that they are criticizing is the time schedule, like you said. A bit too much, a bit too soon. And but they have the point there because, like I said, after 5 years, the need for these clean fuels will be skyrocketing high, but there is nothing to buy. They cannot do anything yet. And that will be a big
But how do you make the decision then as a port owner of where to when to make the decision and how fast should you move?
We let's say that also referring to these discussions with several shipping lines and several captains, they are hesitating themselves. They are now thinking that where to go to. We have some LNG ships calling our port. That's one popular choice because it's quite easier from LNG to change, for example, to ammonium. But if you are going to methanol kind of ships. That's much more difficult to back it up. And what happens, like Peter said, that what happens if the fossil fuels are getting cheaper? On the other hand, not more expensive, but they're getting cheaper. How do they come back? Because that's the problem, that you have to think about money also. You want to save the world, but you have to think about money because your competitions are doing it anyhow.
Well, there's a way to challenge it. At the moment, in my opinion, and again, this is not an audience view, this is mine, money is not really the problem because there's a mountain of subsidies, etc., being offered. The problem is the competition. Let's speak bluntly. There are enormously powerful vested interests that don't want change, that want business to continue as usual, that have known about climate change for over 40 years and done nothing. They have a plan, and so far, unfortunately, it's working, and that's delayed. So policymakers say, the way to tackle this is, here's a pile of carrots, but we won't bring out the stick. Now, in my experience, when you put out carrots, you generally attract, I don't know, rabbits, donkeys, whatever I am, I'm that. Why are they not bringing out the stick? Well, because it takes a brave person to bring a stick against a gorilla. And that's what we're talking about when we're talking about large fossil fuel companies with their power and influence. We have continued to allow them to operate without, well, there's a small carbon border tax which will gradually escalate. We're going very slowly, softly with a stick. If we got serious and overnight said, there is a cost. I think there's a philosopher who said, we may be the first generation that didn't find it economical enough to save ourselves. Are we going to be that people? We could bring out the stick. Then we need less of the carrots. And the stick applies, and the money will come from the trillions of dollars of profits. Look at any of the fossil fuel companies. They had a record year last year. And we're hand-wringing saying, oh, where's the budget to do this? Well, I've got a good idea where to get it.
And yeah, Mark.
Can I add just one more thing? So what will change this game is the end customers. So if we are forgetting all the shipping lines and logistics service providers, and if you're talking to the either the end customers or the manufacturing guys, they will say that they have to give the promise to the end customers that they will go below certain, for example, go below certain CO2 levels in their shipping emissions. And that's happening already now. I know several companies who are forced to do this, and this will drive the shipping lines to make the change.
And you're already going into, and I'm going to open for questions just after this last quick questions, because and all of you already mentioned who should do what and when. So as I hear from most of you, now is the time to act. Who should do it? I also hear customers, or just all of us in this room, we should demand to pay a little bit more for greener electricity, and we also heard, what should be done. We heard about the role of government in Bodø, for example, saying we want a hydrogen ferry, and suddenly the fuel will be there. So let's just do a quick round of, if you have any advice, recommendations for policymakers, for investors, for academia, like who should do what, when, and for how much. If Petri, you want to start before we open up for questions?
Yeah, like Petter also mentioned, the politicians that they are not in the sync. I think the business is going faster and the industry is going faster than bureaucracy is coming. They'll follow. A good example is like we are now building the first hydrogen station in Finland. It's like we need to ask all the steps, and we need to ask like, is this acceptable? Can you accept this? And it's coming a little behind. So I think that maybe it's simplified say that maybe the politicians should go down a little bit to the field and come to talk with us who are building this industry, and take us a little bit more and more, ask our opinion, like what now, what next, and how fast. I understand that there are some problems, but I'm an engineer, I don't need to worry about those. Investors, I think we are attractive field. Myself, I sold my company for Norwegian Hydrogen, so we got some attention, and I think, and as Norwegian Hydrogen is also attracting new investors, and we are looking more and more those kind of things. I think it is interesting field for them who understand that there is the future and knows what's coming. For universities and school systems, yeah, of course, we need more the workforce and of course the understanding. I would say more understanding whatever you are doing, but I would say the process understanding. Even though you are doing one part of the whole process, I think it still would be a really big thing, like to understand the whole process. It's a small part what you're doing, but you need to understand, I think, a little bit of the whole process and whole system. This is the message.
Perfect. Marks?
I would like to quote Sweden's most famous cultural export, not ABBA, but Greta Thunberg. She said, I want you to act as though the house is on fire. And I think that really clarifies things. When your house is on fire, you have a problem. You don't ring 3 fire brigades and get quotes on who's the cheapest and who can come out at what time. You take action. And that's what I say, that yes, the economics are important, but it's more important that we take action. So on that, I would say that now is not the time. Yes, it's a crisis and the house is on fire, but don't lower our ambitions. That the future that we envisage doesn't just have to be carbon-free. It's important that it is, but it can also be other things. It can be more democratic. We can have a future for our children that is not beholden to foreign interests, etc. This is a time for us to examine all aspects of the existing system and say, what is the better future we're working towards?
And who is that us who should act then?
It starts at the individual level, but also at the policy level. At every stage, don't lower ambitions. You know, we went from phasing out fossil fuels in the EU to phasing out Russian fossil fuels in the EU. See, that's the kind of creep that annoys me. They said, how did that happen? I don't remember voting on that. That's not lowering ambition.
Marco, what do you need? What should people do to speed up this process that is needed?
I think everybody knows already that there will be a huge need for this. But of course, you are talking about huge investments. And if there is a sandpit or sandbox where you want to go and play, you have to know what the rules are there in the longer run. So in that sense, if there's something unclear in whether we are talking about mandates or international policies or regulations or whatever, they need to be there to make the investors put hundreds of millions or billions of euros into these projects. But we need to be fast because there will be need in 5 years' time.
It's a bit like artificial intelligence that we don't have technology is moving so much faster than legislation, and that limits development. Peter, who should do what when in Border to help you develop your hydrogen?
So when we're into quotes here, I would quote Winston Churchill, never miss a good crisis. There are so many opportunities here. This climate crisis is so many opportunities. We have to look at it as a challenge, as an opportunity. How can we solve this? And of course, we've talked a little bit about it, and population enlightenment. We need to educate, we need to inform, we need to move what we accept now. And I think Norway is kind of the epicenter for this, where people have some understanding that we have free power almost, you know. It's so inexpensive. So when the power prices kind of goes a little bit up, it's people are demonstrating, you know. So we need some enlightenment. We need to understand that this commodity is going to get more expensive. Things are going to have to change. We need to think differently. Everything from how we get to work to how we fly the planes or etc. You know, this needs to be worked with. It needs to be dealt with. And I would also say that we need to make these subsidies that we talked about, the carrots and the sticks. We need to make this less bureaucratic, less work. I can't, as a hydrogen startup, I can't use 1,500 hours in applying for EU funding when there's a risk that I won't get them, and then I have to use another person solely for reporting into this system. it's not gonna fly for me, but for a big corporation that has 40 experts working on this, that's not a problem. So yeah, there's a lot of things.
No, thank you. And I think this is a clear message that recently there was a policy paper from all the business organizations in Europe saying that what they're asking from the EU was speed, so things has to move faster when it comes to technology. Scale, we need to think bigger. I mean, what happens in northern Sweden is a good example. And then simplicity. It has to be more simple to deal with bureaucracy to succeed with this. We have around 10 minutes left, and there's already a question from Ambassador down there, and then we have one question there. Let's take all three questions. That would be great. So let's just start with the person in the corner there, and then we will move over, and then we have, yeah.
Thank you. Hello all. I'm Ville Toivonen. I study in the University of Helsinki, but I'm currently also intern in the International Barents Secretariat in Kirkenes, Norway. And as this is my second day in the job, please bear with me. Thank you, everybody, for the interesting discussion. I think I learned a lot here. And I want to especially thank for the inspirational vision that Mox provided about the energy future of the Arctic and producing the energy for the whole of Europe. I think that was interesting. What I wanted to ask was that, as far as I know, this process of water electrolysis itself needs electricity, right? So if we stay with that 1 magical kilogram that we have been talking about, what kind of energy is needed to produce that? And when we scale it up to be the Saudi Arabia of green energy, what kind of electricity production we will need for the whole Arctic or the Nordic to actually realize that vision? Thank you.
Thank you. Good question. Let's take the next from the ambassador, and then the man just in front of the ambassador afterwards.
Thank you very much. I mean, this was genuinely fascinating. I was at the outer rim of my comprehension, but it was hugely interesting. And I take a risk of making a fool out of myself, because I mean, if you answer, I may not understand the answer, or you tell me that you already explained it and I didn't understand it. But on the transportation problem, if a container ship only takes 22 tons, I think it was one of the examples used. My question is are you aware of the science being anywhere close to finding a solution to this dilemma? Are we close on making it more transportable? And a remark that I want to make is that I don't understand much about hydrogen. I grant you that, but I understand something about other things. And I pre-warned Mats of this comment, and I'm fully aware it's none of his doing. But I do feel obliged to say that the gender balance of the panel leaves a bit to be desired. Thank you.
And then the last question in front of you.
Good morning, everyone. I'm Juuso Renholm from Business Oulu. And yesterday, in the same room, our mayor, Ari Alatoso, mayor of Oulu, said that we need a common industrial strategy with the northern Finland and northern Norway and northern Sweden by the governments of those countries. If we think about the hydrogen production, do we need this kind of strategy between the state level? And if we do, why or why not?
Perfect. So we got three questions. One is, how much electricity do we need?
Yes.
And I think actually another one, just to throw it into the mix, we need a lot more mining as well. So to produce this green electricity, we need a lot more nickel and copper and so on, rare earth elements. That's another mix. Then the second question was about transportation. You know, how far are we in developing better transportation forms? And do we need a common industrial strategy? Anyone who wants to start up with how much electricity we need, Max?
Okay, so generally, a rough rule of thumb, electrolyzer efficiency is increasing, but generally now you need around 50 kilowatt hours to produce that 1 kilogram of hydrogen. But it's not, looking forward, We don't just have to drop in hydrogen wherever we're using natural gas today. Sometimes, because the hydrogen is produced from green electricity, sometimes it will be more clever to use that green electricity directly. In electric arc furnaces, for example, for steel making, rather than using hydrogen to melt the steel using high temperatures. So there are ways to address that, the amount of electricity. And that's something we need to talk about because societal acceptance of renewable electricity, mostly through wind farms here in the north, is something we need to address. On the question raised by the ambassador about the technology, yes, there are various means to transport technology. Liquid hydrogen, which requires it to be cooled down to minus 252 degrees, has been used by NASA since the 1960s. Whenever you hear there's a delay in a launch, quite often it's because of the refueling problems of liquid hydrogen. It is extremely difficult to handle. Minus 252 is about nearly absolute zero, so it is extremely complex. The solution, of course, I'm talking my own story here. Pipelines are a mature technology. There's around 4,000 kilometers of hydrogen pipeline in the world today. If we put in a standard dimension of 48-inch pipeline, that can transport around 5 million tons of hydrogen per year. So that's one of the economic angles.
Anyone who wants to comment on the transportation and the energy needed?
No, hard to add anything after Mox, to be honest, but I will try something.
We'll get back to you, Petra, just in a second.
Yeah.
Just Petra.
I want to add for the liquefaction in this case that, of course, when the market will open and the industry can start to use it more and more, we see that at some point we are able to build also liquefaction facility and produce hydrogen, liquid hydrogen and deliver it more and more. But of course, at the moment, because the need at the market at the moment is so small, I think we will go with gaseous state a long time. And of course, when there is a pipeline, that's always the best solution. But sometimes you need to deliver it to the other location. And when there is industrial need, it's probably liquefied. So yeah, I think that is coming, but let's start with the gaseous state at the moment.
Petra?
Yes, so of course, rule of thumb, as we talked about, you need about 1 kilowatts to produce, and you need about 2 kilowatts to produce 1 kilowatts. But in order to use all of the energy, we need to use the byproducts as well in this production. So here in Bodø, we're using the heat from the production and putting it into the city heating, central heating grid, so that we can use this heat instead of sending it out in the fjord or into the air or whatever. We have to utilize every watt that we put into this and get something out. Also, the oxygen, we need offset on the oxygen for fisheries and so forth. So that we utilize everything and thus creating these industrial symbiosis where one's byproduct can be someone else's resource and also utilizing all of the energy and also develop a way to or use the flexibility in our grid more, store the energy in hydrogen. We've been talking about this earlier as well. And transportation-wise, of course, you could you can put it as a derivative into ammonia, which I think will be more a better way of utilizing this in deep sea maritime and also on airplanes as e-fuels. So, yeah.
No, thank you. And do we need a common hydrogen industrial policy for the north of Norway, Sweden, and Finland?
Well, I can start and say that yes. What would we be? What we need is a common statement. What do we want to do? I'm an engineer. I'm a very simple person, so I think that we need a target. Then when we have a target, we just make some notes that what should we do, what need to be done. And that's when we're talking about the government, it most probably will be the energy grids, later on the hydrogen pipeline, then the policies, rules, etc., subsidies, and that's it. I think the business side will take care of the rest.
I think that we're actually running ahead of policy here. Nordion, we're the gas TSO of Sweden, but we're privately owned. We are already building the infrastructure together with Gas Grid of Finland. So cross-border cooperation in infrastructure development is already taking place. It's the only way it can work. As I started off saying, we don't produce electricity at the town level. We think nationally, internationally, and this is an energy question. We cannot think small.
Thank you very much. Let's give a round of applause to this panel. And we will continue to speak about business for the next after the break. But first, there will be a half-an-hour break. And when you hear a small bell ring, you'll please come back here and we will continue for the rest of the event. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Excellent. Good to go. Excellent. Good afternoon. No introduction for me, so I'll handle that myself. Markku Korkeakoski, born and raised in Oulu, although I work in Helsinki. So I'm mixed between the south and north. I'm a CEO in a company called Silverskin. We are offensive security company. But I do have a long history in the public safety, in research, in 5G, partly in 6G, and also helping the public communities when I can, especially in the Oulu region. I will have 2 slides just to lay the baseline or the ground for the panel session. And in the panel, we have slight changes because originally there were 3 and now we are 2 panelists and myself. So unfortunately, one of the panelists had an event that he needs to be in Stockholm. So we prioritize things. But still, excellent panelists. I'm sure that we will have a nice and good, almost most likely, full discussion during the panel. We'll see. Something about critical infrastructure and also something about cybersecurity. And please keep in mind that those are mostly my views. So it's not necessarily the pure truth that how those are. But since we are discussing about different topics and how they interact, I tend to use maybe 10 minutes or so to go these through. Oh, okay. Well, no need to see those. The fact that we are talking about critical infrastructure, people tend to understand it differently. What belongs under the umbrella of critical infrastructure? Traditionally, that means transportation, energy, food and some manufacturing, and also the public safety and defense. But there are nowadays much more than that, and always has been. But we tend to kind of use our own minds and mindsets that how we form the idea of critical infrastructure. We have cloud computing, we have complex interactions between different systems, and the digital infrastructure has become more and more important for running the baseline or the platform for different infrastructures. So one thing, you don't need to go through the names and the tags and figures, but this is about creating mindset that it's a huge complex area. It's not one thing, and those are not necessarily individually in their own bubble. So they tend to interact. And there's also interaction between commercial platforms, which are not necessarily considered to be as a critical infrastructure as such. But those are global platforms. We use the data, we use the same technologies, we use the same development in those, which means that we also have the same threats, we have the same risks that in the common or business platforms. And of course, we have global situation where we are at today. And that creates different threats. My last slide is about cybersecurity. And this is important. There are multiple different definitions of cybersecurity. And also multiple different terminology about cybersecurity. We talk about ICT security, we talk about IT security, information security, or maybe even physical security. And in a way, these are all connected. I'm using cybersecurity as an umbrella to cover pretty much everything. And quite frankly, I rarely talk about cybersecurity as cyber. Because it doesn't really matter. If something happens, are we blaming the cyber or the ICT or the IT? We talk about resilience. We talk about continuity. In business domain, we talk about business continuity, because at the end of the day, that's the most important for the business. We try to run the business, we keep it running, and we enhance that. And when something happens, if someone breaks into our facility, I can't blame the individuals on that one. I'm blaming the whole holistic security solution. The same mindset should be on this one. We can't paint the corner of what we've done actually in the cyber. So we paint us in the corner of technology. So we, as a cyber security specialists, the experts, we are the only ones who know about the cybersecurity, and all the others, you don't know anything about that. That's not the right mindset. But that also reflects the mindset in the businesses, in some sense also in the local communities, that there's someone somewhere who knows the cybersecurity. And that someone somewhere needs to take the responsibility of the cybersecurity. And it's not like that. We all have our own responsibility on the security, on the resilience. We all play our part in that one. And this is hopefully also about the panel session we are now going to go. Not necessarily deep dive into technological solutions of the cybersecurity, but really discussing about how we build the local communities, how we build the resilience, what kind of role does the technology have, the people, the businesses, the government. So we are not in individual bubbles, but we are holistic security. And with that mindset also for the audience, please try to think of questions. If you don't have any, then I'll create some. But please, for the panelists, and because we have only 2 panelists, which is exactly the right amount, I'll let you do the introduction for yourselves. So Hannu, Lotta, please, welcome to the stage. Excellent, welcome.
Thank you.
We are fairly new colleagues, if I may say. So I know very little about you, and I guess the audience has the same. So please, if you can introduce yourself.
Thank you. My name is Lotta Finstorp. I'm governor in Norrbotten. And I've been there since the 1st of February 2021, right in the middle of the pandemic, actually. And we talked before we went to the stage here that, you know, as your counties also are very sparsely populated, not Oulu, because that's so interesting how you have the youngest population in Europe. So I think we have to learn a lot from you. But my friends in the parliament in Sweden, when it was clear that the government had decided me that I should be the governor in Norrbotten, they said, oh, you can't move up there, you know, people doesn't speak, they can't laugh, it's so dark. And when we talked about that, you said it was the same in Finland also, and perhaps it is in Norway also. And actually, it's up here, everything is happening. So it's so wrong, but I think we have to produce other pictures about what's happening and to get these pictures well known in the southern part of our countries. So I was a member in the parliament in Sweden for 11 years for the Moderate Party, and I was the first female governor in Norrbotten, and I think the first person from the Moderate Party also. But it's so good to be a person from the high north and to live here, because you are so good persons up here. But you live in Helsinki.
No, I live in Oulu. I live in Oulu. I work in Helsinki.
Yeah, and I think the things we are going to talk about, the good cooperation, that has to do with how people are up here. And I say that immediately when I moved to Norrbotten from the Stockholm countryside, actually, it was so easy because people they have a kind of entrepreneurship in them, because it's too far away to go to Stockholm or to get someone from Stockholm come up and solve the problems. So we have to do it ourselves. And that is very, very good in this situation we are in, the geopolitical, what's happening around us. And so I know we are going to solve everything. Not everything, but we are, because I don't have the experience from Stockholm area. It's not the same at all. And yeah, so I'm looking forward to talk with you and talk with the audience about how we do the collaboration in a lot of fields, actually, because that's what's happening up in Norrbotten, in the northern part of the world, in the high north. It's amazing. And I have on my residence in Luleå, where I live, we have a lot of representatives from all over the world. They are coming up to see the green wonder up in the north. And so sometimes when you are looking, you're working very much and looking just into where you are, then it's good to meet other people from all over the world when they see with their eyes on us that it's happening a lot of good things. So the green wonder up in the north, but there are also challenges.
We need to talk more about the green wonder, but thank you, Lotta. Hannu.
Thanks.
Okay, good morning also on my behalf. Thank you for having me in here in this event and panel. So my name is Hannu Nikurautio. I'm a research director at University of Oulu. I have the two roles that are leading this kind of defense and security strategy, and then this NATO Diana 6G test center. So before, actually, I'm pretty new and fresh guy in university academic life because I joined last year, November. Before that, I have been in business world. Don't be amazed if I say company name Nokia. So I have been Nokia, and this kind of mobile network, a lot of infrastructure from the 2G up to the nowadays 6G. So that's basically my background. Let me explain a little bit about this role now in the university. As if I started with the faculty, I'm in the information electrical engineering faculty, and that is the basically value chain for that is that it's we had this kind of from the solution up to creation. So that is the where we can have expertise and researching. So it means basically that starting from the ICT material, printable circuit, and this kind of really wise technology in the sensor, going up to then this kind of autonomous environment where we have drones, and then we have this AI is the big topic today. It's one of our major researching area, but we go up to the human sensitive centric topics. So taking account of the ethic, that how to do this everything, ethical level, etc. So that is the giving the impression already that we can, even we talk about it, the 6G, it's including quite a lot. In this faculty, we have a program what is called 6G flagship. And that's probably well known in globally because it's one of the largest academic research group. We have more than 500 researchers around of the global, about 50 nationalities, connection with the 400 customers. So customer interface is really important for us. So, and they have already published more than 2,700 this kind of researching papers, and then also about 100 doctoral theses. So it's the pretty long what we have done in the 6G here. And this flagship is targeting now in the areas like device, connectivity, intelligent, and then human-centric services. And the main thing is that we are aligning that with the industry. And when I say industry, we talk about the verticals like industry, health, vehicle, energy. We had a lot of talk about energy before this. And then we have this defense, what is not new in university, but it's a relatively new vertical where I'm then looking the strategy because of the global situation. It used to be more low profile, this kind of vertical. So the verticals are actually then going direction of the partners and the customer, looking at how we can cooperate, how as a university we can help them in researching, and how they can actually take us part of the project or then EU funded the project, because we need money also to going forward. And that's the where I am, like in this side. Then when I say to NATO Diana 6G test center, so let me briefly explain about this NATO initiative, this NATO Diana. So when Finland joined in NATO, so then in Defense Ministry and together with Technology Research Institute, VTT, how we call it in Finland, and then University of Oulu, we looked together that we want to apply this NATO Diana program, because that's now the possibility. And we made this kind of, or they made, I was not in part of yet, that so proposal that we have a package, we have a accelerator, we are focusing the next generation connectivity, communication, and we have applying the assessor for that. Accelerator, so accelerator means that this kind of innovator startups or whoever has an innovation in dual technology can then apply and send the application that my solution or product, what is maybe the commercial product today, could be utilized in military area. So that's why we call it the dual use. So that was the one part of the package. We want to have this kind of possibilities to in Finland. And that's driven nowadays by VTT. Then we looked at what we need to make it's even more comprehensive. So we looked at, we need to test center. Test center target is now that when the innovators will be accepted part of the program, they can then use those test center. And we put it to 6G as a future connectivity, and then this kind of cyber security, quantum calculation, and space. And this last one, quantum and space, is driven by VTT and it's located in Espoo, south of Finland. And then the 6G test center is driven by Oulu University, partnering with the VTT. And then we have good facilities together with VTT here, and it's already ready to rock, if you want to say that way. So I think that we have a good package now, and now the point is that how we can utilize that and how we can bring it up. And there I see a lot of cooperation possibilities, as Sweden is NATO, and then Norway is also part of the NATO. So we have been united now. And then we should take a look at how we can support each other in the different kind of segment, as we could be much more stronger this way. So that's basically now these two different things where I'm, but it's really much combined together. And when we are in the defense sector, we talk about it, the critical infra, critical communication. But that's not only the defense part of the topic, because in the health, it is the relative critical. Government communication is the critical infra. Energy, we talk about it, the resilience, we can maybe come back to that. So you will see the resilience is the big, wide topic. And it's not only the infra, but it's everything. So how we can be resilient in every area what we have. Thank you. That's me. So long this time.
And thank you for that. We'll come back to some of those in a bit. About the green wonder, and could you, because when we talk about collaboration, we talk about investments. We need to find the money to build the collaboration. Unfortunately, that's how it works. Either it's time or physical money, but we need to find that somewhere. The green wonder and the Norrbotten area, how is the current development there?
I can't say the amount of money right now because it's increasing all the time, actually. It's like Klondike. It's a new mining industries, it's old ones, doing the green transition. But also we have, and I saw that Louisa Order from H2 Green Steel should have been here today, but it's the world's first green steel plant.
Okay.
And it's a building right now with 4,000 employers building the plant. That's one thing, and all the mining industry, but also the S-range space area. I think, or I know it has to do with the membership in NATO, that they have a lot of new customers from the defense sector. So we are sparsely populated, and we need a lot more inhabitants, because otherwise we need 60,000 more inhabitants to take all these new jobs in the green area. So that is really a problem, because we were laughing at what the picture of the northern part of our countries, the picture that is, very dark and very few people and more reindeers than people and so on. But in Sweden we have an increasing number of unemployed people in the southern part, and we should have some reform work with that people must take jobs while we have jobs, because only in Kiruna, in the municipality of Kiruna, I saw they have 1,000 free jobs you can take. It's from to be a chef in a kitchen, or to be an engineer in the mining industry, and we have also, because it's a fantastic period to be a county governor in Norrbotten, but it's also a lot of challenges, of course. I mean, I can sit here and smile about every crowns coming to Norrbotten, but there is in Kiruna, for example, and I think you can feel you have the same in your different counties, that the teachers and the nurses and so on, they choose to work in the mining area, in the mining sector, instead of teach or take care of elder people, because it's the salaries are much higher. And so when we want to grow, and we're growing fast, I hope, with a lot of new inhabitants, we must have welfare also, not only green plants and in that field, because otherwise we are going to have fly in, fly out, and that is also when we think about security and connections and so on. We have a lot of people fly in on Sunday evenings and fly out on Thursday evenings. So that is the first challenge. But also we have the geopolitical, the geographic area, and the high north. It's not only good forces who wants to be there. Yep. It's only evil ones. So, so that is in your field, and there we have to have a good collaboration over the borders also. But we have a very long-term collaboration with both Nordland, Troms, Finnmark, and the same counties in Finland also for a lot of years. And since 2014, we have an MOU, Memorandum of Understanding, together in the security field for civil defense and crisis preparedness. So, and they are working very closely, my co-workers, and also the same, their colleagues in Finland and Norway, to be ready. And they have very good collaboration. We have in blue light sector, but it's also I'm worried about how we can be connected to each other when we have when we are threatened from evil forces. So that's one thing, I think.
That's really interesting, and the civil defense is something that we, at least I would like to hear more about. But regarding the development, for example, green energy and so forth, yes, you also need to have more logistics, and Norrbotten is also in the transportation sector.
Yeah.
You have development on the railways, I believe.
Yeah, exactly. But it takes so long time. When I was in the parliament, I was 4 years in the transportation committee. And then I remember, now it's a bit shame, because we went to Stortinget to talk to the transportation committee in Norway about Ofoten, the railway Ofoten, because we thought that was the weakest link in the infrastructure for a railway. But I think Ofoten is much better than Malmbanan in Sweden nowadays. So there we see we must, we must have even better collaboration over the board due to the infrastructure, because we only have Malmbanan, Ofoten, and then we have just some big roads, but we have too little railway. I can take one good example, because we have a lot of practice. We are training a lot together in the civil defense area with the armed forces also, and the MSB. I'm pointing to Hanna there. Then we had assisterade statsförvaltaren in Nordland. She was 6 weeks in my office to get good connections together, and then my co-workers are going to Bodø and so on, and we have also the same connection to Finland. But then we talked about, we had it like a training. If something is happening to the north-south road in Norway, and we have to transport wounded people, or if we just have to move them to Sweden, we have only one railway and one way into, actually it's 2, I think, from Bodø. But we were talking about the new hospital in Kiruna, and I have been very clear that when, it's quite seldom you build a new hospital, but it has to do with the mining. We are moving the whole Kiruna city, and then they're going to build a new hospital. And I say that you must think about resilience. We must have hospital rooms underground, so we can also have our own inhabitants, but also from Nordland and perhaps from Finnmark. And we must also work in the same way with the border, Finland and Sweden. So when you build new things, you must think about how can you do that, because we don't know when we're going to need it very sharp.
Yeah, that's a good point. I had a specific reason why I mentioned the railway, because traditionally railways are thought of being the physical tracks, and the train goes like train goes. But nowadays there's also underneath the hood you have digital infrastructure. You have connectivity, you have communications, you have different means of security as well. And do you have any thoughts on the transportation and how, or the industry, but transportation more specific, how the connectivity or the mobile technologies can help on those?
How it acts in this kind of behind of everything, basically. So, okay, so transportation like the railways, this, of course, we need to have then, what is the one topic in Finland discuss about that, how are the rails,
yes, I know.
wide or short, how we can get the similar kind of size that we can then have this kind of maintenance and logistic better. Then we have seen that the link to the trains in the electricity, if we have a electricity disruption, typically trains are then the station. And of course in the mobile network, the communication overall is important in the situation that if you want to come in the this kind of situation that you can already predict something. that what is going to happen in the network. So we need to have a digitalization, we need to have a certain kind of the sensoring so that we can collect the data, and based on the data then analyze that what has happened in history, what can happen in future. And I think that is the link to the resilience quite a lot, that to be able to then, if some kind of disruption or happens, then we can survive easily and fast. And how to avoid it disturbance in business or society. So I see that the transportation is one, but of course then if you go even energy, so I think that even there we are very much easily you can destroy many things if you hit in some of the energy sources. So we need to definitely look there that how we can improve the situation now that we understand where we are standing, how we can then be protected better in those. And it's coming in the power grid then, that this is the one place where we have a power source, but then if something happens to that, how we then utilize our AI in the network, that we can reroute it that easily and fast. So then we can survive, and the damage is a typically smaller one then. And so I think that normally it's I could say that we need to see as a digitalization and mobile network as a benefit, the background, and then digitalization means if I go to now look the north part of our land, what is the really less populated, people are aging, and then if I to be honest, then infra many times is not so good. So we need to look at how we improve the infra, because we need to get the communication through the people if something happens. And that's typically happen if the wire lines they are cut it or they are broken, then we utilize the mobile network. Of course, no mobile network is not, it's also easy to harm the mobile network today. It's, you can even do some kind of radio disturbance and collapse the whole network. And that's why researching is now look quite a lot at how to avoid it, how to be utilized then this kind of intelligence in the network that we can then fight against of the jamming or disturbance of the network, and how then we use some other areas. But I think that it's important to understand in that the north part of where the less population, more reindeers, that how we then secure people in there. And I think that you talk about it also, the workforce, that we have more, if I understood right, we have more work opportunities in the north than south. And then now if you look this kind of trend, people want to go to south. And that's what I think that now in the government level we need to, and also in the local authorities, we need to really look at how to expand this and utilize better this our whole Sweden or Finland in north part. But that if the people go to south only, we are more unemployed, and then we should have more work in there, and we need more people in north also. So I think that that's something where we need to look as together, how we can then improve this. It's anyway in the borderlines what we have now against of the east border. We need to look at this is the area where you can easily, maybe not easily is not the right word, but we need to build the system, use the digitalization, all this kind of global transportation has to be good, energy grid has to be good, water supply need to be good, because this is the area where you can come in also. So this is the common borderlines, and we need to look at how we are strong there. And now, of course, part of the NATO, it's bringing some new security level for us. We can cooperate with them and have more about researching, innovation, and then also somehow to get the support in there in this area. But I think that it's long answer for your transportation question, but it's bit broader than only the transportation.
I'll take a couple of steps back. Maybe 2 years ago, there was an incident in Denmark where all the trains were stopped, and there was a cyber attack, and that was not against the railway company, it was against one of their partners. So they had an application that they used when running the trains. It was not the actual railway company. And that emphasizes the fact that when we build something like railways, it is still, to me, because I don't understand the details, fairly simple thing, kind of. But it's actually really complex when you start adding things on top of the tracks. And since we've established the fact that we are quite local, or small local communities in a way, in the northern region, can we actually provide all the different layers and details that is required to build new kind of infrastructure? Do we have a room for collaboration? And maybe before going to business collaboration, do we have a room for research collaboration? Do we already have established collaboration between different research entities?
Right. Maybe I started, you continue. As I know, we have today, I don't know all these kind of, but we have from Oulu University, we have a Luleå University where we are collaborating, and then some of the Oslo, Norway universities, and not even staying there, we are looking also Arlington University in USA, that how to collaborate, how to combine the researching, etc. So I could say that we have, but maybe you know better that how much we have this kind of collaboration in researching. But I see that we have, but it can be improved.
Yeah, absolutely. And there, can I ask you, because you're coming from the university world, I heard and I know that in the small municipalities, and I think you reached that also, in the small municipality, if you are responsible for preparedness in all areas in municipality, you are also responsible for water supply, or, you know, it's more like the title doesn't say what you are working with, because, you know, that's the, it's only to face it, because they have no money. They can't have one person who has everything in this civil defense area. But I think we have, in Sweden, we only have, I think it's one university educating for this kind of work in municipalities, because we need to build the resilience from the local up to the national and also top down. So do you educate people for the community sector or the municipality sector in that area? Or where do they do that?
Yeah, so as I'm in the technology side of the university quite a lot, so resilience and educating then municipalities, people in understanding what it means. But we have also university business school, and business school probably is then touching a different kind of type of the education. And forgive me, I don't know exactly what they are doing in the business school.
I have a person from the university, and then I asked you the question, but you don't have to answer if you can't. But I think that is a luck in the chain, that we need more education in this field, so you can, so they can work very good in the municipalities and together with the regional. And nowadays in Sweden we have a higher regional level also.
Right.
Where I am the head of the civil defense and preparedness area for 53% of the Swedish area, the whole northern Sweden with the 4 counties. And then I see, and I'm worried about the lack of competence in this area out in the small municipalities. And I think that's normal, because they haven't been in the situation before. And I can say some about Kalix, the municipality of Kalix, a small municipality next to Haparanda and Tornio, next to the border. And I think it was 3 days before Christmas 2021, they had a huge cyber attack where it was completely dark. Everything in the data area, I'm a social worker, so I can't everything about this, but and it was a ransomware, so yeah. And they were lucky because they had also written for the elder people when they were in the elderly health care service, what kind of medicine people should have and in which amount and so on. And I think that was because there was some older head of the department that they also were written it down and not only in the computers. So they could manage the people, the elderly care people, very well actually. But as soon as I started to rebuild the system again, there was a new attack. But they did it very well. They took in the best competence perhaps in the world, how they could do it, because they didn't have their own competence in-house. And I think that's very important also. They were very good at information to the inhabitants. What's happening now? Where can you go? They use, radio communications between them and also out the national radio, the forecast also. But it was so tough for them. And I think it's now, some years after this, they are running again like they did before. But it took a lot of money, a lot of hours, and I know they had, they worked all the Christmas weekend just sitting at the community hall so people could come. It was nearly like war in that way. And we had also one, last winter it was very, very cold in Norrbotten. I think you had the same up here also. So one day in Älvsbyn, the community of Älvsbyn, they had no electricity and no telecommunications. And that is a huge area, very sparsely populated, but a huge area with demographic, a lot of elderly people. So they had no electricity. They couldn't phone the elder people out in the community and the municipality. And they start working and that had to do with Telia, the system of Telia, you have it also here. They hadn't paid for extra something, so they didn't have, I think so. They did, when the electricity, when it was dark, they couldn't phone because they hadn't paid for extra like security when the electricity was
going down.
Exactly. So, and I think that was 3 or 4 days, and they had to drive to everyone out in the countryside to see how they felt. And they put, fire in the fireplaces and so on. And they phoned in another way. I didn't know how they did, but if you had another operator, you could phone to say, hey, you must come from Stockholm and go to your relative out in the wood because we have no electricity. We can't phone to hear how he or she is. So I think we have a lot to learn, and that was why I asked you about education in the university field, because we need a lot of people who have the ability to work with this in this field.
Yeah, I take that somehow. Yeah, I think that to have this kind of education and expertise, it means that even with today, to kind of cooperation with the certain levels. So it means that we need to really then connect not only university but business, because I think that business is important to understand what is happening, and operators like over the border to discuss that how we can avoid this kind of situation, how in the other operator we have a wider cell coverage, even coming from the Sweden to Finland, when we can somehow in the border live better. Then it has to also include the government, municipal authorities. So looking together, I could say that it's kind of the private-public partnership, so that we are partnering and understanding that because universities typically will immediately react if they see that we have a lack of something and we need to really do some of the education. It takes time then. So that's why certainly like in our faculty, I touch about this human-centric topics. We have the regulator topic, we have already the ethical things, sustainability. So it's not really like a black spot that we are not doing anything, but I could say that still important is that like in here that we need to get the companies to joining these activities, so that it's not only the university and alone, and then also the decision makers, we need to look that we have a similar kind of strategy and plan, that we are not going there and they have decided to do something else. So it has to be equal, like a together made strategy. Then I need to mention about this kind of technical topic that nowadays, if there is the somehow earthquake or some of the, like you explained, that this you lost basically in this one of the area totally the communication capability.
Minus 40. It was
minus
also
40.
Minus 40.
So that's not nice, I could say, and. We should, that's the showing that how easily things can change, that the power energy stop. We don't have any kind of resilience for that, where we could survive. Communication cut, because operators are not agreeing something or what, I don't know, but we have technically, we have used that already in the military area, or then in the Asia, in the emergency situation, that we basically with the drones, we take this kind of base station in the drones, and we have then connection in the power in the alert, and we created the temporary cell coverage for the emergency case, and that should be something that we should take those kind of like that we are immediately ready to utilize that kind of opportunities whenever it happens. So I think that there is already a lot of solution for many things, but I think that we have not invest those, or we have not think about it those too well. But we had even recently here Oulu area in the smaller community, so that something happened to energy source, and it thousands this kind of inhabitants were losing their power. 2 to 3 hours. Okay, now it's summertime, so it's no problem. And it took quite a lot of time to find out what was the reason. No anything where you can suddenly turn it easily that, hey, we can get the power from there. So it's only so that how harmful we are in this area. And that's why I say that now it's the good timing when we go and please remember that technology will bring the advantage, so that you can use the AI, you can use the better communication source, and you take those in the use. Just a little bit putting more into this kind of monitoring system, that we can collect what is happening, what is the people doing, how we can remotely help them, and how we then can start it by analyzing. We have such a good AI machines nowadays. Even in Finland we have, and Sweden together, we have this Lumi supercomputer, what is doing trillion of the calculation in seconds. What can then, we need to take a study to use those, but all this needs the data, and that's going to the how to get it the information from, and that's already there, and this is the one area where we need to look even especially in area like north, where the people are living there and there. So they need a lot of
Widely
support in there.
spread.
Yeah.
Continue on that one. We've been discussing about how less populated we are in the northern parts, so sparsely populated area. We've identified certain topics like local, how we can prepare for different things in local community. We talk about research and the time span of that one. And as I'm coming from the business side, I'm eager to get the business running. And typically the timeline for the research or the local development might be fairly long. Like in a case, we have cross-border communication and collaboration in the public safety communication between different countries. It's been in place for many, many years. And now, lately, utilizing the commercial technology on that one. But it took maybe 8 years or so. So I was in the Saturday session when they first talked about public safety communication over the commercial technology. And of course, companies were there saying that, yes, there's a lot of money in this one because it's public money, public funding coming from the budget. But then it took the 8 years. And we don't really have businesses who can wait for 8 years to business established. So do we have any, because we've identified these different areas that lack the solutions, either processes or new development or whatnot, do we have tools or collaboration processes or platforms in place how we can get the companies involved earlier?
I think that the companies getting those involved earlier is that we cooperate together. We have a piloting, or we have some of the, if you look like a university, that we have a certain innovation now on the table. Maybe we could utilize the business school understanding how to make that business as a fast. We need to support startup. Typically innovation, they are in startup and they are struggling at the beginning that how they can get it. So if we notice that there's good innovations and those can help, so we need to then put, of course, funding there or invest some of the money that they can bring it the solution and product earlier. But certainly it can be also, now that's only my view, I don't know exactly, but it can be also that we have some problem in our system that if it takes 8 years from innovation to bring it in the product, because the time has run already that it's old, you don't need that anymore. So then it's something that how we can quickly from the innovation get it that on the product or solution. And that should be then look. Of course, we need all kind of the quality ensuring, certification and those. But as I'm now in defense area, of course we have an unfortunate situation in Ukraine, but they have currently so that they need companies, and there is even this kind of side of the process, because they need innovation in 3 to 4 months in the product so that they can utilize it. They are living this kind of, they call it the race rat competition, that whatever you define now, after 4 months the enemy has already same place. So because the ministry has not coming so quickly in this kind of situation that they can support, so they have this kind of side of the companies or union where the process is faster. So this is of course, when they introduce that in the Finland and Finnish companies, that is causing one of the challenge, how to come this kind of. Of course, I hope that this will stop in there and we don't need to do it, but it gives only, I could say that now is the unique time in north part of Sweden, Norway, Finland, prepare and think about it, all this kind of resilient things. Now it's good time. But when it happens, it's not anymore good time. It's you are under the pressure then, and it's a little bit too late. And then I think that, of course, that is the prioritization question. You cannot do everything into one time. You need to look at maybe transportation is the first thing. Maybe then looking that in the north of the Finland, we have a good enough communication level, because if you go, I don't know if Sweden, you go some of the north, even mobile network is not anymore in 4G, it's in 3G. They are closing the 3G, you go to 2G. And when you need to communicate with the nowadays application, you need more than 2G. It's already stopping there. You cannot do the remote controlling, you cannot do the data collection, you cannot do anything then. So operators, of course, are struggling today that they need to also think about it, where to invest and how they can invest and how is the return of investment coming. But maybe that could be one area where over the border operators could put it something together. I don't know, but clearly I see that in the north part we may be if I'm selfish and looking only this mobile network, that we are probably not running as fast as technology outside is supporting some of the activities.
Can local government or region affect on that one, put more pressure on the operators to invest? Or is it just the national level strategy?
I don't think they have muscles to do that.
Business,
but I'm worried about how long do we have? How long time do we have until we must have it all in place? It's no, I think it's more perhaps it's national levels. I think they can put pressure on it, but I am worried because we don't know how long time we have. And you started to say that it was, the 8 years. It could be tomorrow. We must use it.
And then it's, of course, sorry, it's not, I was just thinking about that there's this kind of seamless communication, connectivity. It's not only the wirelines or mobile network, but we need to also, what we are already looking in the 6G, that how to interoperate together with satellite. And then we have also in the military area, we have a tactical networks. So they have probably some better security level, what we could even implement in the this kind of commercial mobile network side. But I think that that's the, instead of the put it maybe much better mobile network in the all places in the north, think about it, that how we can utilize the satellite. But we have a good researching and knowledge of that. So maybe some of the data is enough to take it there, and it's already catching those people in that area. So that's definitely one area where we are already looking, but how to make this kind of interoperability.
Excellent, thank you. We've touched base a lot of different areas, and I'm happy about that because it emphasizes the fact that the security belongs to different areas. It's not just one specific corner, but we have the space, we have the communication, we have the local development, we have the people, processes, research, and hopefully also the business. Food supply.
Without food, we can't do anything.
True.
And we have a very low self-sufficient degree of food supply up in the northern areas in our countries. And so I'm very happy because, can I just say that?
Well, we are heading towards the lunch, so yes.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's good. But we have only 25% self-sufficient supply in Norrbotten. I think it's nearly the same in the other counties also. But we must do much better together there, because when we are training different top table scenarios, there is always the thing about food supply, because otherwise we can't have the connections even like this if we are starving or dying without food. But I'm also chair of in 30 different things. But this is, I have the word in English, I don't know. In Oulu, you have Pro Agria, and we have the same thing in Norrbotten and Västerbotten, where I am the chair. And they have found each other now, Pro Agria in Oulu, and in Norrbotten, Västerbotten, the organizations, to see what they can do to start more, local produced food. And that is a way of surviving. So it was, well, now it was very dark what I said, but we must start growing much more cows and all that. Right. And I've been talking to the Sami village's chairman about we have a lot of reindeers up here, and we must think about how we can do that. When it's going to be the evil forces coming, we must use everything we have. So we can't say, no, we can't talk to them. We must come together and find good solutions. And we do that best when we train together. Then we can see, oh, there is a lack of supplies or what it can be. And then we phone you and say, hey, can you do some research? Because we find this is something we must do much better. So I think that's a good way. Together.
Yeah, absolutely. We do have, we do have time for questions from the audience. So please.
Hello, thank you very much. Antonio Calò from University of Oulu. I'm university lecturer and senior researcher at the university. And I'm one of the responsible one for energy-related education at the University of Oulu. And I'm also on the front line when it comes to recruiting international students. So when we were talking about in the last couple of days of attracting intellectual resources from abroad, essentially you were talking about my students. I have very quick comment and then a question for everyone that spoke in the last couple of days. One is that a warning, any information-based solution to these problems, including the possibility to support green transition thanks to renewables. Any energy-based solution requires a lot of energy itself. So quite often certain solutions are slow simply because in remote areas to install the intelligence to handle that require itself an energy infrastructure that we might not necessarily have. It's a kind of interesting feedback system. So before we provide a solution, we install something that is part of the problem. But leaving that one aside, I have a question that I had in the last couple of days, and it's where energy and security, they overlap. Because we spoke about these two issues, but almost like in a bubble. So when they overlap, what I see from this side is that we need to attract investments, and we are talking about investment in terms of business, but also human investments, because essentially a student that comes to study here and wants to stay has to make an investment. And more we start to see that given the urgency that the security conversation had in the last few years in Finland, including NATO membership, Finland is not really perceived in a kind of like a safe bet quite often. Quite often students themselves, they ask me like, but is it safe to come there? Because yesterday it was mentioned that our conversation is in the Arctic bubble sometimes. And yes, we know that we are okay up here, but from outside, even in Europe, it's not that obvious that Finland is not one of these frontier countries that might actually be exposed to a certain kind of risk. So that disincentivized students to come here to study. We already saw that. We had a drop in the general interest of people coming to study in Finland. And second, I'm not really sure any energy solution that we have been discussing looks at Europe. So we want to produce energy and resources to share with Europe. Are we really sure that Europe would be confident in investing in a country that is largely perceived as the first one to be exposed on the edge of a kind of like questionable border, shall we say that? So that is the kind of question I have, because there is an element of perception here. Finland might not necessarily be seen as safe bet. So, any comment?
Yeah. Maybe I just comment quickly this. You are my colleague in university. Nice to meet you. We have not met earlier. So I think that Oulu University, at least in my faculty, we have quite a good amount of the research from abroad. And question maybe back to you that is it the situation now because of the global situation that Finland has come as a not really safe place? Because where we are living today to our neighbor, is that the reason? Has that been earlier more like an attractive place to come? Okay, so then the point is that how we can still keep the attraction, because we have a lot of good things here in Finland to come and have this kind of researching and study here. And I fully agree that we need also a lot of abroad. We cannot live with by our own people here, and that's true. In the second question about energy and whether the European, I don't know, maybe audience want to comment that also, have we understand that easily. So
Lotta want to comment about the branding.
Yeah, I think it's more your field, but I sometimes when I'm doing a joke or something, I say I want to stay on the border to the southern part of Sweden to stop the energy going away from the northern part of the Arctic. I think we can do a lot more together also, and I think also we must be even more proud and say, okay, we do this, but I know that the grids, it's a commercial and all that, but we are building the Aurora line out together with Finland, and we must do much more than that. But I was thinking actually about the infrastructure, and we must do much better from east to west. We saw a map. If I can just change some topic, we saw a map. It was from University World also, where we don't have any connections. I mean, we must. The main thing is that human resources knows what we are, and they want to come to move up to us, because if we don't have people enough, we can't manage. We can't fight for our democracy, because that is actually what we're talking about when we're talking about evil forces. It has to do with the democracy. And then you have also the field where you are researching. It has to do with the democracy also, right. That everyone must feel safe in the world. And I think that Ukraine is a very good example. It's terrible, but we have to learn how they do to have, connection to each other. They are using a lot of, the phone and text. They have text. I think we have a lot of things to learn from them.
You are absolutely right.
I'm sorry,
only a few seconds. I answered.
It was another.
Because Ukraine, I think that you touched the point. It's a lot of volunteer. They are talking each other. They are feedback given immediately to the companies what is needed, and it's not about the business, government. It's everybody is volunteering to understanding how we can really make better. And
exactly.
Yeah. Going back to that one, most likely we won't have time for another questions, but may I answer also to that question?
Absolutely.
We in Finland, we are not good on marketing. So we don't do branding, we just do stuff. Sweden, good in marketing. Maybe we can emphasize the fact that we build trust. So whenever you meet people, as we stated in the beginning of the panel session, you can trust people here, in a way. That's a mental thing. We don't really expand that to our branding, but maybe there's a room for collaboration on that one to actually expand
Sounds
the
like
branding
good, marketing
on how we do it. Yes, we are neighbors with Russia. Yes, Russia is a country that, well, it's not a friendly neighbor, but it's a fact where we are. They are neighbors with many countries. But we are still a safe country. Same goes with Sweden. Our time is up, so we've done. Thank you for the panelists.
Thank you so much.
Nice and good discussions. Thank you for the question. And thank you for the audience. Let's give a round of applause to our panelists.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much, Markku,
I don't know what's
Lotta,
happening next.
and Hannu. It was wonderful having you here on stage. Now, these past few days have showed us that we have indeed managed to make the Nordics sexy again, not just in the eyes of those that are enthusiastic, but also in the eyes of the majority of the global population who needs technology, access to energy, etc., etc. We've heard about the huge speed of development. Businesses and industry are driving this development, and they call for speed, scale, and simplicity. Now, any event is only as good as its participants, and I think you have been an amazing crowd. Thank you so much for joining us. I won't stand in between you and lunch any longer. Lunch will be served at the second floor, and then just a kind reminder, departure for site visits is at 1:45. We hope to see as many of you there as possible. Thank you again so much for joining us, and safe travels home when the time comes.